So, did you succeed? Let's build this profit calculator application together. Now for that, in that brand new project here, I'll start by turning this into a Go module so that I could build it and create a standalone executable. Now, if you did not do that, that's fine. It was not explicitly stated in the task description, but here I'll do it with help of Go mod init, and then any path of your choice. For example, here I'll use example Go basics-practice. The name, of course, is up to you. This creates this Go mod file here, and with that created, I'll then, as a next step, add a new file. And here I'll name this profit_calculator.go. Now in this file, you should of course start by adding this package clause, so by marking this as a package, and here we should use the name main because that is our main entry point, and at the moment also the only package we need. As a next step, I then will add this main function, which, as you learned, contains the code that will be executed whenever this application starts. Well, and with that, here, for this task, we'll then need 3 different input values, and therefore I'll create 3 different variables here with help of this var keyword. Because we'll need the revenue from the user. And we could set this to int here or to float 64 to accept values with decimal places. But I'll start with int to see whether that will become a problem or not. We then also need the expenses, and I'll also set those to be of type int. And then the tax rate, which definitely should be a float, because the tax rate should be something like 25.8 or something like that. It could also, of course, just be a flat number like this, but it most likely would be some number that has a decimal place. So that's the first step. Now, of course, we have to ask the user for values for these variables. And you learned how you can do that with help of the FMT package, which exposes this scan function you can call. Now scan, as you learned, needs a variable as an input, or to be precise, a pointer to a variable, which is created with that ampersand symbol, and then, for example, revenue, so that the user is able to enter a value for the revenue. Now, to give the user some information for which kind of value we're waiting here, I'll also print something to the terminal with print, not println, so that we don't enter a new line. And here we could simply say revenue, like this. And then we can repeat this step and also ask for the expenses here and populate expenses by using an expenses pointer. And then one last time to also ask for the tax rate like this and populate the tax rate. So with that, we're fetching all that data from the user. Now we can use it in a calculation to get the different values we want to get, which were earnings before tax, after tax, and then the ratio of these two values. So the earnings before tax, the EBT, would be the revenue minus the expenses. So we can create a new variable EBT. We could do it with the var keyword, but we can also use the shorter notation here with colon equal sign, since we'll immediately store a value in there, and that value will be the result of revenue minus expenses, using the minus operator to deduct a number from another number. And this operator works with integers here, as you see, so we got no problem regarding that, and EBT is now inferred to be an integer. Now, of course, that's not all we need. Instead, we also want the profit, so the earnings after tax, and we can get that by adding a new variable, which we set equal to EBT times 1 minus our tax rate. So minus this tax rate. Now in my case here, I expect to get a tax rate that is something like this, and I instead need a value that looks like this. So 25.8, for example, should be translated to this value. And we can achieve this by dividing this tax rate by 100, so that here we have tax rate divided by 100. But now we of course again get a problem because we got mismatched types here. We're mixing an integer with a float 64 in the same calculation, and as you learned before, Go doesn't really like that. Now as a solution, we can of course convert EBT, which is that integer, to a float and the error goes away. Alternatively, we can of course also change the types of the revenue and expenses variables and change them from int to float 64 here and here. That also has the advantage that we allow the user to enter revenue data like this, for example, which otherwise would not be possible if we're waiting for an int. So we gain more flexibility by expecting a float value here for these values. And we don't have to convert any types then. So with that, we then also got the profit. Now we also need the ratio of EBT and profit. So EBT divided by profit. And for that we can add another new variable, ratio, which is EBT divided by profit, just like this. And with that we got the 3 values that we need, and we can now output them. With the format package again, and now println, so that we do enter a new line after every print statement, and we therefore output every value on a new line. And we can then output EBT, and then profit, and then also, of course, the ratio. And that's now all. With that, if I save this, we should have all the code we need. So if we open the terminal here and we run this application, I'm asked for the revenue, let's say 10,000. Then my expenses, let's say 7,500. Then my tax rate, let's say this is 30%. And as a result, I get my EBT, so the earnings before tax, which is 10,000 minus 7,500, this value here. Then the profit after deducting the tax rate, and then the ratio of these 2 values. And that's therefore now my solution for this exercise.